Get down, honey, get down!
What about Dad?
Dad'll be okay. You hang on, honey!
It is necessary to act outside the law.
In the beginning, Frank Castle isn't a vigilante. He's an FBI agent, one case away from retirement, doing the kind of undercover work that turns your name into a disguise, your voice into an accent, and your life into something you can't bring home. And that last case is supposed to be simple. A weapons deal in Tampa, Florida, one more bust, one more paycheck, then he finally goes back to his wife and son.
You like it?
We have a deal.
But the deal collapses in seconds.
This is not good. My father's gonna kill me.
You're under arrest!
The moment the FBI hits the scene, bullets start flying, bodies start dropping, and a young man named Bobby Saint dies right in front of Frank. Frank doesn't even get to mourn him because he learns who Bobby really was. The son of Howard Saint, a crime lord who doesn't grieve like normal people. Howard Saint treats grief like a business expense, a message, a warning, and the message he chooses is simple. If one of his sons dies, then Frank Castle doesn't just lose his job. Frank Castle loses everything. Because while Frank is dreaming about peace, about moving somewhere safe, somewhere far,
You said we were leaving California.
London's a safe place where we can all be together.
Who would stand to make money from this deal? Tell me.
Howard Saint is sending men to learn every detail of Frank's life, where he lives, who he loves, where he goes when he thinks he's safe. And Frank, not knowing any of that, flies to Puerto Rico for a family reunion, a last bright week before a new life. It's sunshine, food, laughter, kids running around the sand.
Your 1911 Colts. You've done something to them.
And then the gunshots start. Assassins hit the party like a storm. Not a warning shot, not a kidnapping. This is a slaughter. Frank grabs his father and his son, tries to get them inside, but it's too late. His relatives are gunned down where they stand. His wife Maria tries to escape with their boy, sprinting for a car, chasing a tiny slice of hope down the road. But hope doesn't outrun Howard Saint.
Mom's gonna get help, okay? Come on, baby. Somebody help me!
The killers catch them and the car becomes a trap. Metal, glass, blood. Frank reaches them seconds too late. He sees bodies, he hears the ocean, and inside his skull, something breaks, clean in half. Then the assassins find him. Howard's son, Johnny, walks up like he's delivering a package, beats Frank down and shoots him. Not even personal, just procedure. They torch the entire place to erase the evidence, and they leave Frank Castle for dead. But Frank doesn't die. The blast throws him into the water, and when he finally crawls back to the world, a friend of the family finds him and drags him to safety.
That's Bobby.
Frank wakes up in a quiet house with wounds that should have killed him and a grief that definitely will. On the table, there's a shirt, his son's shirt, with a skull on it. And Frank doesn't say it out loud, but you can see the decision forming. If the law can't touch Howard Saint, then Frank will. Back in America, Frank disappears into a rundown apartment building where nobody asks questions because everyone's got their own problems. He becomes a ghost in a cheap room, turning his grief into a workshop. He modifies weapons. He reinforces his car. He studies schedules, routines, weaknesses. And the building's residents, 3 people who look like they've already lost their own wars, start noticing him. There's Bumpo, an opera-loving oddball. There's Spacker Dave, covered in piercings and jokes. And there's Joan, tired in the way you get when life keeps taking and never gives back. They don't know who Frank is, but they can feel that he's dangerous. Frank's first move is simple. He needs information. So he kidnaps Mickey, one of the cowards from the Tampa deal, and drags him into the dark.
You should know something.
What's the torch for?
Mickey panics immediately because he knows what Howard Saint does to people who talk, and Frank uses that fear like a key. Here's the thing, Frank doesn't even have to torture him. He fakes it, a little theater, a little pressure, and Mickey folds, spilling everything he knows about Howard Saint's money. Because Howard isn't just a violent man, he's a system. He runs cash through trusted routes, trusted partners. 2 Cuban brothers control gambling and prostitution up and down the Gulf. They feed the machine. Howard launders it, and everyone profits, until someone starts breaking the machine piece by piece. Frank lets Mickey go, not because he's kind, because he knows Mickey will run his mouth, and loose mouths spread fear. Frank starts stalking the Saint family from the edges. Howard Saint lives like a king, but kings still have routines. Frank learns Howard's schedule. He learns how the club is staffed. He learns how the money moves. And most importantly, he learns about Quentin Glass. Quentin is Howard's best friend, the guy who smiles like a knife, kind of man who can walk into a room and make you feel small while he's stealing your wallet. Frank tries the legal route one last time. He publicly demands arrests for his family's murder, but the cops are terrified. Howard Saint owns fear the way other men own real estate. So Frank stops asking. He starts taking. He hits Howard's bank, not to get rich, to make a statement so loud it can't be ignored. Frank forces bankers to fill a suitcase with cash and then throws the rest out a window. Money rains down like confetti. A crowd forms instantly. People scramble, cheering, grabbing, screaming. And in the chaos, Frank disappears. That's when Howard realizes something terrifying. This isn't a rival gang. This isn't a cop. This is one man. A man who isn't trying to win. He's trying to punish. Howard's partners, the Cuban brothers, show up furious. They don't care about Frank's grief. They care about their money. They warn Howard, if the losses continue, they'll take their business elsewhere. And Howard does what insecure kings always do. He bluffs. He threatens. He says he has more guns than they do. But it's a lie. And Frank knows it, because Frank isn't attacking Howard's strongest walls. He's attacking Howard's balance. Frank wants Howard to make mistakes. He wants the people around Howard to start doubting him, to start fearing that staying loyal is more dangerous than betraying him. In the apartment building, life keeps happening around Frank's war. A drunk man harasses Joan. Bumpo and Spacker freeze, unsure what to do.
Come.
And Frank, who swears he's not here to save anyone, steps in anyway. He beats the drunk down and scares him off. And Joan looks at Frank like she's seeing something she thought didn't exist anymore, someone who will stand up. That's the first crack. The first moment Frank realizes even broken people can still protect each other. And that thought is dangerous because it gives him something he hasn't had since Puerto Rico, something to lose. Howard tries to hit back. He sends a hitman, Harry Heck, to take Frank out. Harry is cocky, theatrical. He even tells Frank he's going to sing at his funeral.
Do I know you?
I know you. I wrote that for you.
And then he ambushes Frank in traffic, confident it'll be quick. But Frank's already armored his car. The bullets don't end him. They just confirm what Frank already accepted. He's living on borrowed time. A chase follows. Frank nearly crashes trying not to hit a little girl. And Harry catches up, thinking this is where the story ends. But Frank is not a man you corner. Frank grabs a knife, and in a sudden, brutal struggle, Harry dies. Now the war turns loud. Frank hits a cash shipment. Johnny Saint and a crew are guarding it, thinking sheer numbers will stop a ghost. But Frank isn't fighting fair. He plants a bomb marked like a military joke, front toward enemy. Johnny finds it and barely escapes. Then the ship erupts, cash burns, and on a hill, Frank watches like an executioner watching the blade fall. The Cuban brothers lose their minds. They storm into Howard's office demanding compensation. Howard refuses. He tells them business has no insurance. And for the first time, Howard Saint looks small because he's realizing something. Frank doesn't have to kill Howard to destroy him. Frank can make everyone around Howard abandon him, so Howard escalates. He tells Quentin to call the Russian. If you've never met the Russian in this movie, understand this. He's not a man. He's a problem. A giant sent to erase Frank Castle from the earth. That same night, Spacker begs Frank to help because the drunk guy is back near Joan's place. Frank tries to shut the door on it. He tells himself, don't get attached. Attachments get murdered, but then Joan invites him to dinner. Just food, just a table, just people pretending the world isn't cruel for 5 minutes. And Frank sits with them. They do something simple. They say what they're thankful for. It's corny, it's awkward, and it hits Frank harder than a bullet. Joan tells Frank something that sounds gentle, but is actually a warning. She says, make good memories, because if you don't, if you only live inside the bad ones, then the bad ones become your whole identity. Frank wants to deny it. He wants to stay a weapon, but he can't unhear it. And right when the warmth starts to feel real, the Russian arrives. It's not a shootout, it's a brawl, a long, ugly, apartment-shaking fight. Frank gets thrown through walls. The Russian tanks pain like it's optional. Frank barely wins. He uses boiling water. He uses rage. He uses stubbornness. And when the Russian finally drops, Frank doesn't look victorious. He looks emptied out.
I know what he wants. You can let go now.
But Howard's men aren't done. They find the body. They storm the building. Suddenly, Frank's war spills into other people's lives. Joan and Frank hide in a secret room under the floor.
Where's Castle?
Actually,
Bumpo and Spacker stay upstairs, facing Quentin and the thugs. Quentin doesn't just threaten them. He tortures Spacker, ripping out piercings one by one, trying to make pain talk. And Spacker, who always looked like a joke, refuses to break because somewhere along the way, Frank became his neighbor, and neighbors can become family. Quentin leaves a man behind to watch the building. The second Frank is strong enough, he kills the watcher. Then he turns to Spacker and asks the question he doesn't want answered. Why would you help me? And Spacker says it like it's obvious. Because we're neighbors. Because that's what you do. Joan sees the truth now. Frank isn't just hunting Howard. Frank is also trying to get himself killed. Because dying in battle feels easier than living with loss. And Joan asks the question that slices through Frank's armor. How are you different from them? From the saints? Frank's answer is cold. He says they have something to lose. And Joan realizes Frank is trying to become the one thing Howard can't threaten, a man with nothing left. So Frank shifts tactics. If Howard won't break from bullets and bombs, then Frank will break him from the inside. Frank studies the marriage. He studies the friendships. He studies every little insecurity that keeps Howard Saint awake at night. And he finds it. Howard trusts Quentin more than anyone. Howard loves his wife Livia like she's a trophy, so Frank creates a poison that targets both. He steals Livia's phone. He calls Quentin using it. He threatens him to come to a hotel to pick up photos Howard would never forgive. Then Frank parks Livia's car illegally near that same hotel and makes sure it gets ticketed, a paper trail, the kind of thing that looks meaningless until paranoia notices it. Frank uses Mickey again. Mickey accidentally tells Howard about the ticket, about the hotel, about Quentin, and Howard's mind does the rest. Howard sees Quentin and Livia together. They're smiling. They're talking. And to a man like Howard Saint, that's not friendship. That's betrayal. So Howard goes to Quentin's house. He searches, and Frank has already planted the final needle. An earring, something intimate, something that tells a story without speaking. When Quentin comes home, Howard is waiting, and Howard doesn't accuse him directly. He tells a story, a little parable about suspicion, about a man who thinks he's being cheated. So he breaks into the house, moves furniture, throws a knife on the table, inviting the other man to pick it up. It's a test, a trap. Quentin tries to laugh it off. He says he never stole from Howard, never betrayed him, but Howard has already decided what he believes. And belief is more dangerous than proof. Howard stabs Quentin, not in a clean, merciful way. He kills him like a man trying to kill a doubt inside himself. Then Livia comes home. She finds the house destroyed. She finds Quentin's body, and Howard turns on her next. He says he knows. He says he's seen enough. Livia tries to explain the truth. She says Quentin was gay.
Quentin was gay.
She says the whole thing was a misunderstanding, but Howard isn't listening because Frank didn't just plant evidence. He planted a story that matches Howard's ego, and ego always prefers the story where it's the victim. Howard drags Livia out. He humiliates her. Then, on a bridge, he throws her over the side. A train ends it. Now Howard's empire is cracking. He's murdered his best friend. He's murdered his wife. And he doesn't even know the most brutal part yet. He thinks he's protecting himself. But Frank Castle is the one pulling the strings. Johnny asks about Quentin, asks about his mother. Howard lies right to his face, and that lie right there is the moment Howard Saint becomes completely alone. Frank prepares for the final move, not a drive-by, a full invasion. He takes out guards. He plants bombs on cars like he's laying down a fuse across an entire parking lot. He sneaks into the club from above. And when someone orders champagne, like this is just another night, Frank turns the club into a coffin. An explosion hits. Frank storms in, gunfire, bodies, screams. The empire that terrified the city collapses in minutes because it was never built to withstand one man who doesn't care if he survives. Frank finds Johnny. Johnny is wounded, trapped, begging, and Frank forces him to hold a bomb, not to interrogate him, not to bargain, to make him feel what Frank felt on that beach.
Please.
Then Frank walks out to Howard, and Howard, still clinging to the illusion that he controls this world, tries to speak like a king. But Frank doesn't negotiate with kings. He shows Howard the truth. Photos, the planted story, the earrings. Frank explains it calmly. Howard killed Quentin. Howard killed Livia. And Frank killed both of Howard's sons, not with luck, with intention. Howard realizes too late what this was. Not vengeance, a lesson, a punishment. Frank shoots Howard, not enough to end him, enough to make him helpless. Then Frank ties Howard by the feet to the back of a car, and he drives. As the car drags Howard across the lot, the bombs Frank planted ignite one by one. Fire blooms, metal flips. From above, the explosions form a burning skull. A signature, a message to every predator who thinks fear makes them untouchable.